Talk more about this now with our foreign affairs editor, Ketavan Gorjestani, who joins me on the set. And Ketavan, as I was saying before, Australia is known for having some of the world's strictest gun laws, and yet now officials have announced that they want to strengthen those laws even more. What exactly would that look like?
Well, look, first of all, as you said, those tough gun laws, they've been in place for 3 decades. The real turning point for Australia's relationship to guns was 1996 and that massacre in Port Arthur where 35 people were killed. And that led to a complete overhaul of access to guns. They were much harder to get. There was a buyback scheme, and certain types of guns, including semi-automatic weapons, were all but banned for Australians. There were, in this attack, 15 people who have died. They were shot by one-shot rifles. Just imagine what the death toll would have been like if there had been a semi-automatic weapon involved. So the laws that had been put in place have already restricted heavily the sort of mass shooting that we saw. But at the same time, you still had the number of guns in Australia steadily rising over the past a couple of decades. And so the Prime Minister announced that more restrictions were going to be put in place to take into account some of the specifics of this attack. First of all, limiting the number of guns that one person can own. It seems that one of the perpetrators, the older one, the father, legally owned 6 firearms. And so the idea is here, do you actually need 6 firearms in Australia? The second issue is the fact that licenses for firearms right now are not time limited. And the Prime Minister said people's circumstances can change. People can be radicalized over a period of time. Licenses should not be in perpetuity. In this case, the father had been legally licensed to own a firearm since 2015, but obviously that had not been renewed or checked. And then there are 2 other propositions. One is to limit gun ownership to Australian citizens. That would have excluded the father who arrived in 1998 in Australia and has been a permanent resident but not a citizen. It would not, however, have excluded the son who was an Australian born a citizen. And finally, enhanced background checks. There is a push for more information and additional use of criminal intelligence to be involved when they decide whether or not someone can legally be licensed to own a firearm.
Now, this attack has been defined as an anti-Semitic terror attack, and the Israeli Prime Minister has weighed in on this, saying that Australia's recent recognition of a Palestinian state encourages tourism. Ketavan, I'm going to come back to you in just a minute, but first let's listen to what Benjamin Netanyahu had to say.
Even today, they are trying to murder, and unfortunately, even today, they succeed in murdering Jews. They massacred Jews in Sydney, Australia. 4 months ago, I wrote a letter to the Prime Minister of Australia. I told him, your policy encourages terrorism. It encourages anti-Semitism. You call for a Palestinian state, and you are essentially giving a reward to Hamas for the terrible massacre they committed on us on October 7th.
The Israeli Prime Minister there criticizing the Australian government. And there has been growing criticism from within Australia as well, from within the Jewish community, for not doing enough to fight anti-Semitism. I mean, are these fair criticisms?
Well, look, obviously the criticism from the Israeli Prime Minister has more to do with the recognition of the Palestinian state, and that is very hard to tell whether or not that was actually what was at stake here and what fueled this attack. But the broader criticism is that basically since October 7th, 2023, and the government has acknowledged that, there has been a steady rise in anti-Semitic incidents, whether they're insults towards Jewish people all the way to arson attacks on synagogues, for example, or Jewish schools. But the criticism is that while the government has acknowledged that there has been a rise, they haven't done enough to protect the Jewish community. That said, because of this rise in anti-Semitic attacks, the government did appoint back in July of 2024 its first special envoy to combat anti-Semitism. Gillian Siegel was put in that position, and a year after she was named, in July 2025, she put out a report with wide-ranging and sometimes controversial propositions as to how to ensure that the Jewish community is safe. Among some of the proposals, there was, for example, strengthening hate and intimidation laws, improving education about the Holocaust, but there were also more controversial proposals like withholding funds from universities and artists who they deemed had failed to do enough to fight against anti-Semitism, or even the proposal of, quote, monitoring media coverage of these ideas. The Prime Minister of Australia rejected the accusation that they have not done enough. He pointed to the fact that they criminalized hate speech, they banned hate symbols, and there has been a lot of money put over the past 2 years in helping the Jewish community boost its security around sensitive sites, like, of course, synagogues.